think there's an error here. It has to be something different. Anyways, there will be a default range. So for this one, you also need a constructor, which is the default constructor. It will create a random number and scale it to a default range. That's what's going to do. So another constructor will accept a range, so two values. The first value will be smaller than the second value, which then you are going to define a range. Using two values, you're going to, again, create a random number and scale it using those two values. And this class will have a get function. It's going to be a public function. It will return a random number. So when you call get, actually you're going to create another random number and rescale it based on the given range values. So for this class, what are the member data? Maybe you can store the random number, but you don't have to, because at each call of get, you're going to return a different random number. You don't have to store the random number, but you have to store the range values, two values. So, and for the constructors, you have to check whether the first value is smaller than the second value. Okay, for this one, you just have to decide, okay, this get has to be a public function. Okay, so the data should be private. So those kind of things I will ask you to be careful about. For example, if you are defining the member data, you are normally going to do it as a private data. Okay, so and if you need to, so I may ask you to use const parameter modifier, etc. So I may deduct points if you don't do those things.
Is the random number a double or something?
It doesn't say anything about that. If I don't specifically say anything, you can just assume something and implement it according to that.
You should just return 0 or 1.
So as I said, there's something wrong with this question. I remember correcting it in the exam. Part 3. So you have these small questions, maybe, or you can have a larger question. Okay, here, okay, so it asks you to design and implement a student class according to the following description. So, yeah, student class stores the name and age of a student. Okay. Default name is empty, string and age 0. So it can be constructed with two parameters, name and age. So you need two constructors. So you're going to implement an operator which prints student details. You decide how it's going to be printed. Overloads, I want to compare two students. So how can you compare two students if the names are the same and the age? You don't have to check the age. Okay, you can check the age as well. Okay, you need to define another class course. Stores the name, maximum capacity, and the students enrolled. So okay, name of the class is a string. Maximum capacity, it's an integer. What about this students enrolled? How can you store the students enrolled? What kind of data can you use here?
Static.
Static? Why? Students enrolled to a particular class? No, not static. So you can have more than one classes. This class and the other class. Each will have a list of students. Basically, students enrolled. It's not. It doesn't say anything. It doesn't say number of students. It's there will be a list of students and each student objects. So where do you store the students objects? So an array, right? So you need an array member, or you can dynamically create an array. Then in that case, you need a pointer. So the default name of the string is empty, capacity is 0. Can be constructed with 2-3 parameters, name and capacity, or name array of students. So I can also give you an array of student objects and the number of students. Okay, then Do you remember anything like this? Constructor delegation?
Calling the constructors of member data.
So if you have two constructors, 2 or 3, more than one constructor can call the other constructor. That doesn't mean that it will create another object. It's just going to, one constructor initializes it, and then the other constructor continues it. That's constructor delegation. Then you don't have to rewrite the same thing in two constructors. So one constructor calls the other. Does something extra, but calls the other for the rest of the operation. Okay, so you're going to write a print. It will just print the course name, number of students, student list. So you're going to have a loop, just going to go through the list of students. You're going to overload an array index operator. Given an index, it's going to return a student object. So it says vector of students, not an array. So that's okay. The return student is read-only. What's the meaning? So do you remember how do we overload this operator? It basically returns, it can either return a copy of the thing in the array, or you are trying to access, or it can also return a reference. If it returns a reference, that's not read-only. You can modify that thing. If just it returns a copy, it's going to be read-only, right? So you cannot modify the actual data inside the class. It says do it read-only, so then you have to, you don't use reference. Since it's read-only, it's going to return constant. Okay, so overloads this addition plus operator, which registers a student's object to the course by adding a copy of the student, a copy of it to the student's vector. So I ask you to overload this operator. So when you overload this operator for this class, how do you use it? Class plus student will add that student as a copy to the vector inside the class. Okay, so it asks you to write the different sections. As you can see, it will be about class definitions, operator overloading, constructors. In addition to this, dynamic allocation will be also part of the equation. You have to know how you do assignment operator overload, copy constructor, and destructor. Those three things you have to know. Why do we have to implement them? That's important. And how do we use them? So you have to clear those things out. Do we have anything? No. So I will show more examples tomorrow. Yeah, we can stop here. I mean, I can show more examples tomorrow.
Do we have to put the questions to paper? Or just
no, just the answers. So I don't write anything. If it helps for you, you can write anything. So I'm just interested with your answer. You have to, of course, you have to specify the answer, which question, which answer. So, and you have to write names to your every paper. So those are written in the document I provided. So I will create an exercise assignment for you to just take a picture, then create a PDF, submit it. So that's it. Do you have any questions? As I said, there isn't going to be a PS tomorrow. If we need, we can use that PS session for more examples. If we can't finish tomorrow, okay. So it will be online though, so online only. But tomorrow's lecture I will still be in the classroom if you are here. So we'll show more examples. That's all. Okay. Any questions?
Is the exam format going to be in this style?